an initiative very much set up in response to a demand from practitioners on the ground. And that was a demand to find ways to actually support practitioners themselves in dealing with extreme forms of violation and distress in community. The idea was to get African practitioners from other regions to be in dialogue and start to think together, to share methodologies, to share approaches, and to start pushing our own ways of doing forward in terms of addressing the combined and interrelated issues of violence against women, HIV, and also emotional well-being and mental health.
I love the fact that AIR is pulling together all of this knowledge across the continent. We have so many great ideas. We've had great interventions that have been honed over many, many years and generations of dealing with some very horrible situations. The idea that AIR is pulling together all of this knowledge across different parts of Africa, that it's going to document this knowledge, because we live in a world where if knowledge isn't documented, it's almost as if it doesn't exist. So by documenting that, we are going to make sure that people cannot ignore the great interventions that African women and African communities have developed over the years.
We didn't realize we were doing such kind of what is considered unique work. We were just doing our work, and then suddenly somebody in our meetings picked up on this, the way we care for carers, on that part of our work, and so we realized this is something maybe we have developed skills in that should be shared. The African reality has become much more porous. It's no longer my country versus your country. You know, in my country we do things like that, and in your country you can do things like that. I think we learn from each other. It's time that we learn from each other and don't become so insular, or don't remain so insular.
I think that what is so compelling about AIR is the fact that for so long, responses to violence against women on the continent have tended to rely on external ideas, ideas that have come in from outside of the continent, ideas that have not taken account or grown out of some of our traditional responses to a whole range of traumas. What AIR is doing is making sure that some of those really excellent ideas, really excellent approaches are gathered together, that they're documented, and then even more importantly, that they're shared.
So the African practitioners who are part of AIR felt compelled to actually name what we'd need as being a transformative feminist approach. And as I said, these are people that work in community level, people that work on policy advocacy, people that work on research, designing intervention models. But people felt that the transformative was critical because the problems of HIV violence and mental health are caused by structural inequality. So we can deal with symptoms by treating someone's bad leg or doing surgery or what have you, but that ultimately, if we don't address the root causes of why those things are happening, they're always going to happen. So transformative is an interest in transforming structural power. Now, the feminist is naming the kind of power. We're talking about the distress in women's lives. We're talking about the level of violation, violence, and distress in women's lives, which is actually shocking. And so that is at the scale that it's at because it is propelled by patriarchal power relations, right? Why is it that women are suffering more than men? Because there's a gender dynamic there. So we're interested in addressing and changing that gender power dynamic.